some unknown reason, Shavkat the Nomad Rakhmonov is flying under every UFC fan's radar right now. Even with the likes of UFC legend Khabib Nurmagomedov giving him shoutouts, reporters falling head over heels for him, and holding a ridiculous 17-0 professional record, no one seems to be noticing him, and it might be due to his absolutely wild heritage and literally growing up within a tribe that makes him the new dark horse of the UFC welterweight division. This is why UFC fighters are actually scared of Shavkat Rakhmonov. Born on October 23 in 1994, Shavkat grew up in the plains of Uzbekistan, and let's just say, he didn't exactly spend his lunchtimes playing tag, because Shavkat has shared that his love for fighting came very early on in his childhood, when his brothers would make him fight other local kids in the town. But at this stage, fighting was nothing more than a way to pass time for Shavkat, and what ultimately changed his purpose in life and perspective on the sport forever was probably from the last place you would have ever expected, because Shavkat recalled a moment where in his childhood, he went down to the local market where he came across some DVDs of mixed martial arts from both Pride and the UFC, and explained that he soon realized after watching the likes of Fyodor Emelianenko and Mirko Cro Cop that the strongest men in the world compete in MMA, and it was in this moment that he had a realization.
Не знаю, чувствовал, что почему-то так вырасту и такой же спортсменом стану.
Following this realization, after moving with his family to the neighboring country of Kazakhstan, Shavkat began his martial arts journey at the age of 16, starting with Sambo, the preferred style of many dominant UFC legends such as Khabib Nurmagomedov, Islam Makhachev, and Fyodor Emelianenko. Speaking of Khabib and Islam, earlier I said that Shavkat was flying under everyone's radar. What I meant to say was everyone's radar except for Khabib and his team, because what may surprise you is that Shavkat has had his fair share of run-ins with the Dagestanis and was even coached by Khabib's legendary father Abdul Nurmagomedov during the early stages of his career. Shavkat is actually also the first ever Kazakh fighter to sign a contract with the UFC, and when he first got signed back in 2020, it was an obvious decision for the organization considering the dominance he already had in the underground scene. He first became an undefeated amateur MMA world champion back in 2013 at the age of just 18, but would soon go on to receive his only 2 losses of his career over 2 consecutive years, coming from the championship fights in the World MMA Association in 2014 and 2015. Both losses actually came from the same fighter, Gadzi Murad Kiramagomedov, but Shavkat would make sure that he was never going to lose again, because he would soon compete as a professional fighter where he would completely dominate the welterweight division of the M1 organization and go undefeated as a professional fighter, defending his belt several times. His dominance was enough to earn him a contract from the UFC, and since signing shortly after, he has also gained the likes of Javier Mendez, coach of the current UFC lightweight champion, Islam Makhachev. Javier has paid attention and praised Shavkat for his UFC dominance, calling him the Terminator and a champion in the making.
He's a title contender for darn sure, and after this fight, they may very well give him a title shot. He takes care of business. That's a champion in the making right there. So,
but the praise doesn't just stop there, because Shavkat's even received a shout out from the Eagle himself. And Khabib isn't the only one giving this man shoutouts, because what this reporter said shows that he's not just a fan favorite for his fighting skills, and he may also have himself a one-way ticket to the commentary booth after Laura Sanko, the UFC's first ever female commentator, had this to say about him on the UFC's weigh-in show.
Shavkat Rakhmonov. That man gives me chills. I've never interviewed him. I've never spoken to him, but I can see the goosebumps. I feel like I would get nervous.
But
He is 16-0 with a perfect split of 8 knockouts and 8 submissions. If that's not sexy, I don't know what is.
really does.
Laura's words ended up going viral. However, she was quick to deny her fantasies for Shavkat.
Laura, I train with Shavkat, so you want me to get that number for you? Just let me know, I got you. Oh, that's
Can
easy.
we address this? Don't have a crush on the man. I like his fighting style.
Bro,
An entire country thinks I do.
Anyway, she ended up interviewing Shavkat after his fight against Jeff Neal at UFC 296, and you can see that she's a big fan of the man, wearing his traditional Kazakh headdress whilst interviewing him. And well, Sanko isn't wrong about Shavkat's dominance, because standing with an absurd professional record of 17 wins and 0 losses, all of which have been finishes, Shavkat is standing amongst the best in not just his division, but the entire UFC roster. To put it into perspective, current UFC superstar Khamzat Chimaev holds an impressive record of 13 wins and 0 losses, but when put to the test against the top of the division, has been shown to slow down. Neil Magny, who was previously meant to face Khamzat, said it best when asked to compare the two prior to his bout against Shavkat.
In my opinion, these guys are great athletes, but when you face other great athletes or experienced veterans like myself or Gilbert Burns, it's a whole nother playing field.
And well, unfortunately for Magny, it looked like Shavkat's lack of UFC experience was the only thing he was right about, because when they finally faced off at UFC Fight Night, Shavkat showed him it didn't matter if he was a veteran or not, as he proceeded to ragdoll Magny before finally submitting him late in the second round. And his streak didn't stop there, because shortly after his dominating performance against Neil Magny, the next man on Shavkat's hit list was number 7 ranked Jeff Neal, who made notable wins against the likes of Bilal Muhammad and Vicente Luque. And although this fight was more competitive than the last, Shavkat still managed to make it look effortless by nearly doubling the amount of significant strikes thrown and soon ending the fight to a rear naked choke just 1 minute into the 3rd round. So with his next bout booked for UFC 296 in December, a win against fan favorite Stephen Wonderboy Thompson could just be enough to push the first ever fighter out of Kazakhstan into title contention. And if there's one thing we do know about Shavkat, it's that he takes pride in his country and the people of his nation, saying in an interview that Kazakhs have always valued their courageous warriors and their heroes. They remembered them and are proud of them. It's part of our culture and it's of a great importance to us. He even goes on to say that his ancestors were no ordinary people. They were like steppe nomads, warlike people who would move from place to place. They would sit on horseback and shoot their enemies with arrows, sometimes hitting their hearts. And unluckily for Shavkat's future opponents, it looks like they'll be the ones going to war with the next generation of nomad, because it doesn't look like his reign is going anywhere anytime soon. So what do you guys think of Shavkat Rakhmonov? Is he going to be the UFC's next big superstar, or are we looking at another hype train that's about to be derailed? Let us know in the comments. If you guys enjoyed the video, subscribe and check out another one here.